Ensign Ro introduces us to two characters. The first right here, Mott the Barber. He likes to dispense advice while he's working, much like Guinan. Unlike Guinan, people aren't really interested in hearing it, although he's giving Picard a haircut, so it's unlikely to take long. That's not a bald joke, it's just a fact. If it was a bald joke, I would say that Mott took out his shoe shine box and started polishing Picard's head, and of course, that's not happening. And good thing, too, because it seems that there's a distress signal from a colony near the Cardassian border. And with a new peace treaty that's, well, so new that the ink is wet and more importantly, it hasn't screwed the colonists over yet, it's necessary to go and check it out and make sure that the peace has been preserved. And to help out, of course, I'm sure the people dying don't much care about who is killing them, they would just prefer that it stop. And this detachment is something to keep in mind throughout the episode, as part of the idea is the conflict between the immediate and practical implications and the political/legal ones. The latter tends to forget about the former by throwing labels onto things, like if this is an illegal attack taking place. It's only worse in a political sense, not in a human cost sense. It's not as if the legal ones are any better. They show up with some properly filled out forms or something to show the colonists before the bombardment begins. Yes, everything appears to be in order. Wait a minute. This is dated for yesterday. I don't care if you were held up in traffic. If you attack us right now, that's illegal. So, who's doing the attacking?
This is the Bajora. We claim responsibility for the destruction of the Federation colony on Salarians 4.
Oh, well, then it's got to be the Krogans. Only the Krogans will attack the Salarians. And I'm afraid that the only people who will get that joke will be too busy to watch this video today. Oh, well. So they head to a nearby starbase to talk with Admiral Kennelly about the attack and how to deal with it because, you see, it seems that the ones claiming responsibility are Bajoran terrorists. The episode lays the groundwork for them, revealing the annexation, the brutal subjugation, the way that they were turned into refugees, and naturally some of them fighting back. But this is different. This is an attack on the Federation. You can't just ignore this now. You're going to have to take steps.
But they're not helping themselves with an attack like this. That's what I want you to communicate to them.
Like telling them not to do it anymore. Well, talking is something we're good at on TNG, so this will play to their strength. But there's a snag. That second character, Ensign Ro. Kennelly rams her down Picard's throat, even though she was court-martialed for disobeying orders that wound up leading to a number of deaths. This is obviously a bad thing, and it's no small wonder that neither Riker nor Picard want her aboard. And yet...
You will follow Starfleet uniform code aboard this ship, Ensign.
Riker can still somehow seem like he's being petty.
I intend to demand the highest level of performance from her.
I would expect nothing less.
Your reputation for douchebaggery is well known. She gets called in to discuss this arrangement.
Yes, Ensign Laren, please sit down.
Ensign Ro, sir.
I beg your pardon.
The Bajoran custom has the family name first, the individual's name second. I am properly addressed as Ensign Ro.
And in many areas of Earth, for that matter. But not anymore, bitches! The future belongs to the West. Star Trek proves it. Ha ha! Switch your names now and just get it over with. Speaking of just getting it over with, that's Ro's attitude about this whole assignment. She's only here because it was a way out of the stockade. And all of Riker's, "You've never earned this" stuff just bounces right off her multispectral don't-give-a-shit field. But she's still brought to the briefing to discuss what they'll do when they try to meet with the terrorist leader responsible for this attack. Because the thing about terrorists, see, is that they generally prefer to hide and avoid SEAL teams from dropping from the sky and ruining Mucho Nacho night at the compound. But they have an ad hoc leader that they plan to go talk to, although Ro isn't all too chipper about it.
Is there a problem, Ensign?
I was just wondering if you took my earring and then put me next to someone in a low-cut body hugger as a sick joke, or are you just that brazen in your favoritism? She says that the guy they're talking about has no actual authority, that all they're interested in is stopping the Cardassian occupation, no matter what it takes, even death.
Well, this ship is prepared to defend itself if necessary.
Oh, it will be.
Oh, a nice bandolier there, Chewbacca. I assume that's standard issue as well. She directs them to a man on one of the Bajoran settlements, so they head there, and we see the state that these people have been reduced to living in. And the Bajoran Picard is meeting with is not terribly happy with him. While he doesn't condone harming innocents, the Federation refused to help the Bajorans at all, because it occurred within Cardassian borders, and the Prime Directive said that it would be bad form and all of that, even though there was a war going on between the two sides. You cannot get involved in an internal revolution. Should have called it a resistance movement. When Picard tries to explain that this new peace treaty changes things, that political pressures can now be applied to get the Cardassians to change, and let's recognize that for political reasons they would leave Bajor a little over a year later, so he was quite possibly correct. But the Bajoran leader points out that the issue, well, is the one that I brought up at the beginning. Picard is thinking in these terms that are distanced from the suffering of these actual people. So Picard gives the settlers what they need as a gesture of goodwill. Anyone who's played video games knows exactly how this works. You need to get somewhere, so you get pointed to a guy who could help, but first you have to do a quest for them in order to get the info to move on to the next quest. Well, luckily Picard has replicators, so he doesn't need to go into the grass and start killing giant bugs looking for crystals or something. Guinan was the first recurring character in Star Trek without a human connection, or at least so far removed as to not really compare to any others. Spock and Troy are half human, Worf was raised by humans, Data strives to be human. But aside of visiting and a friendship with Picard, Guinan is completely alien. And so when Ensign Ro comes aboard, the second such character, it's fitting that she is the first to really embrace her, pointing out that her claim that she doesn't want to be alone is a crock of crap. She just wants to be an emo going out in public so she can show off being isolated in front of everybody else. They hit it off quickly, which is a good thing for her because she's not making friends very quickly around here. She beams down without getting permission and talks to the terrorist leader ahead of time. So when Picard's entourage follows, they're captured. But it's just a brief captivity to let them know that this guy and his people had nothing to do with it. But Worf doesn't buy it. Obviously they're afraid of reprisal, he says. Something that would make sense, assuming you hadn't announced it to all that would listen that you performed the attack, which is the entire basis for suspecting that they did it in the first place. In other words, someone puts up a great big sign saying, "You suck. Sincerely, the Bajorans." And when the Bajorans say, "That's not our sign," Worf figures that the only explanation is that they're lying and just trying to lie low with their gigantic sign. Picard restricts Ro to her quarters when they get back, prompting a visit from Guinan. There's a reason we don't often see Guinan in long shots. It's because they tend to dress her up like some combination Fruit of the Loom mascot and monochromatic Pippi Longstocking. After a little talking, she gets Ro a chance to speak one-on-one with Picard about what's really going on. Her relationship with him is the only thing that could have reasonably pulled this off so easily, and her friendship with Ro does seem like it has naturally developed, even though it hasn't been for very long. Both are refugees, and Guinan has always had a bit of a roguish streak to her, so that she'd be endeared to Ro's unorthodox manners. And Ro's probably happy that someone is willing to see past her bullshit and her bullshit record. Ro comes into the show in an acerbic manner, but there's a tragedy about her character that makes it understandable, and the way Guinan smooths off some of the rough edges over the course of the episode helps her keep her attitude without becoming grating. And it's a good thing, too, because Guinan and Ro are both necessary in this show because, frankly, there's not a whole lot of strong female presence in here. I mean, Dr. Crusher basically says the medical jargon and that's it. And Troy, well, nothing more needs to be said. So it's good to have these kinds of characters in here that are willing to stand up for themselves without going too far, without being a pain in the ass. And we're going to get to that later this month. Anyway, Ro spills the beans. The reason Kennelly wanted her and not one of the other Bajorans was because she could be forced to work behind Picard's back for him. She was to secretly offer weapons in exchange for peace. And given how badly they're needed and how much her people suffer, she went along with it. Picard's not happy with this news or that decision, but since she didn't go through with it, he's willing to give the Picard blessing. But he does want her to help spring whatever trap might have been laid to find out what's going on. So after informing Kennelly of their mission's success, that they'll be returning the terrorists to the Bajoran settlements, they begin escorting the ship, dangerously close to the Cardassians, though.
Ensign Ro, what's the closest we come to the Cardassian border on our current heading to Valo 3?
13,400 kilometers, sir.
Wow, in cosmic terms, that's the equivalent of, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you." Well, naturally, this attracts the Cardassians' attention, and they send 2 warships. That way we can get some view-screen posturing for a while, as the Cardassians, admittedly subdued compared to most, want the Enterprise to go away so they can get on with blowing up this ship, Their openness about this, their honesty is actually kind of refreshing. When Picard refuses, they issue an ultimatum, so Picard has to tell Starfleet, including the Kennelly, to let them know that they might be fighting the guys that they just signed a peace treaty with like 20 minutes ago. Kennelly says the treaty is more important than the Bajorans, but Picard points out that this seems like a perfect way to lure out the terrorist leader so he could be killed. But Kennelly denies it, and orders him to withdraw and let them die, and that this year there will be no Christmas. So they withdraw and the ship is blown up, but it was all a ruse. The ship was empty, piloted remotely, and now the jig is up on the Admiral because they're not dead, I guess. Picard points out the obvious. The Bajoran ships here don't have warp capability, so they couldn't have attacked the Salarians even if they wanted to. This was all likely staged by the Cardassians.
Cardassians? Why?
Perhaps they were hoping to find someone in Starfleet. Like you, Admiral. Naive enough to solve their Bajoran problem for them.
Oh, no, he didn't. Ha! I think all will agree. I have just taken you to school, Admiral. Time for me to do my put-down victory dance. Afterwards, Picard discusses Ro staying on board. It's a polite but realistic conversation. He freely admits that she has a lot to learn, but clearly has the potential to be a great officer if she were to stay. So she agrees, provided she gets to wear her earring, and that Riker has to polish it for her every day. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to Kennelly for just about everything he does. Even his name is stupid. Knowing my luck, someone in the audience has probably named that. Final score for Ensign Ro is 7 out of 10. The foundation for DS9 is laid here, and it's done quite well. The Bajorans are general enough that they don't seem like they're supposed to be any particular group. They are just a tragic group of people, some of whom have resorted to violence to try to solve their problems. In Picard and Ro's scene in the Ready Room, they discuss the implications without getting into an argument over it. Picard believes arming the Bajorans is a violation of the principles of the Federation and cannot be condoned, while Ro, who came out of one of those resettlement camps and watched her father tortured to death, feels helping these people is the only option. Both have a point. Over the past quarter century, we have witnessed revolutions and atrocities, and sometimes nations stepped in, and sometimes they stood on the sidelines. When did those actions go right, and when did they go wrong? There was an Egypt which handled its change all by themselves. There was a Libya which had outside assistance. And then there was an Iraq which had regime overthrow from without. What will history show comes from all of that? These are the times when the general idea of the Prime Directive is applicable, that you don't want to become part of the problem. But even Picard gives humanitarian aid to these people. How far can we go until we've gone too far? I don't have an answer. Although, given the fact that they were fighting the Cardassians, not involving themselves with those also fighting the Cardassians is a bit of a head-scratcher. Did they also have someone on hand in the Federation to say,
"We will, at last, know peace in our time"?
That's right along the Cardassian border.
Laying a new course. I'm on my way.